Good evening, Tansei and Neen. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Daryl Stranger. A First Nations couple arrived in Ottawa after walking all the way from Alberta, where the Odawa Friendship Centre honored them. They're making moccasin tracks across the country for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Here's Annette Francis with more.
A small group of supporters at the Odawa Native Friendship Centre met Charity and Cameron West to hear about their journey. The couple have been walking 40 kilometres a day to raise awareness about missing or murdered Indigenous women, girls, and men. Charity tells the group how she became a single mom when her son's father, Barry Thomas Seymour, disappeared 11 years ago.
There really needs to be change. We have so many people that we've lost personally within our families, so many friends from high school that are just gone, so many of our friends' families that have losses in their life, and it's far too common. It's not right that this is so regular, it's such a regular occurrence within our Indigenous communities. That can't continue to happen. This has to stop.
Cameron and Charity are both from Prince George, which sits at the end of the Highway of Tears. 5 years ago, Cameron's 18-year-old cousin, Jessica Patrick, was murdered. He said her body was found outside of Smithers, BC, after searchers noticed birds circling an object. The murder has yet to be solved.
We aren't walking for ourselves. We are walking for our children. We are walking for their children and their children. So, for me personally, I don't think this walk is for us, it's for them.
The Wests have been walking since May. Donna Hester is a program manager at Odawa. She says it's not just a walk, it's important work that they're doing.
It promotes that awareness and education, understanding, and it brings those issues out into the forefront. Even though it's a cause that that comes from a place of trauma and what we all experience, right? But also I believe that coming together in situations like this is also healing.
For the West, that's what it's all about. Charity has received encouraging words from family members.
One of the things that sticks out is that we're really bringing these women home and these people home. And so once they told me that, and the young lady told me that, I went in my truck and I had a good cry because I just thought of my son's dad being brought home through our efforts, and that's, yeah.
The Wests expect to arrive in St. John's, Newfoundland by October. From there, they will return home and walk the 720-kilometre Trail of Tears from Prince George. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Prison Justice Day is coming up on August 10th. It's an international event acknowledged around the world. The movement began in Canada in 1974 in support of prisoners' rights and to remember those who died in prison. Sherry Gordon is a prisoner's advocate for Beyond Prison Walls Canada. She plans to be outside Regina's Legislative Building wearing her Prison Justice Day t-shirt on August the 10th. Gordon says prisoners and supporters will be protesting peacefully across the country and around the world by fasting, which starts at midnight.
Now it's just celebrated all over. I mean, I didn't know, honestly, until just a few years ago that it was an international thing. I thought it was just a Canadian thing, but prisoners all over celebrated to just remember those who have died for whatever it was that they died inside. Some of them have died, because of assaults by guards. Some of them, I guess it's natural causes.
The wildfires in Saskatchewan have spread to the province's south. A thick cloud of smoke could be seen over Buffalo Pound Provincial Park.
I went over to go and check it out and see if there was a fire for sure, and I got over there and sure enough you could see the fire from quite a ways away.
There are currently 42 wildfires burning in Saskatchewan. 2 of them are considered out of control. Already this year, 383 wildfires have scorched more than 1 million hectares of forest land, and that's in just Saskatchewan alone. And more wildfires in the BC interior, where flames on both sides of Adams Lake have prompted evacuation orders as crews continue to battle the fires over the long weekend. The East Adams Lake wildfire in the Shuswap has scorched more than 4,800 hectares and is still burning out of control. Meanwhile, more than 630 properties have been evacuated across the province. There are nearly 400 wildfires burning across the province, 14 of them out of control. Nearly 4,000 emergency personnel are battling the fires, including international help from the U.S., Australia, Mexico, Brazil, and Costa Rica. Residents of the Yukon First Nation of Old Crow continue to contend with smoky conditions coming from surrounding forest fires. Meanwhile, the town of Mayo is being completely evacuated due to the wildfires. There's a fire 7 kilometers southeast of the community. The Yukon government says the community is not under any immediate threat. It added that health concerns surrounding the smoke are being addressed. Some residents have already been evacuated, and right now there are 126 active wildfires in the territory.
In Old Crow, the fires are being assessed, so they've been assessed by satellite. The situation remains the same as it was before. We don't believe there's an immediate threat to the town.
We're aware of the concerns with the smoke, and we've worked with ESS to establish clean air centers and bring in extra equipment such as fans and filters for individuals' homes, as well as air conditioners. The priority is to try and keep people in the community safely and comfortably.
All right, we do have to step aside a moment. When we return, an Ottawa area restaurant is serving up Indigenous eats.
I feel like we've been in the shadows for so long, and we have a chance to really stand proud to be who we are.
Good morning, Manitou Bistro.
Welcome back to APTN National News. An Algonquin woman is feeding appetites and minds with Indigenous flair in the Ottawa Valley. Renfrew is a 1-hour drive west of the nation's capital, and as Annette Francis reports, it's now the home of the area's only Indigenous restaurant.
There's a new place in town, and it's serving up some unique dishes, traditional foods with a twist.
We have our wild rice tacos is huge too. Everybody loves the wild rice tacos, as well as the nachos with the wild rice. So it's like sort of like we have our day-to-day food, but with a fusion of native blood in it.
Suzette Foco is the proud owner and chef of the Manitou Bistro. Foco's mother is originally from the Algonquin community of Kitigan-Zibi.
Good morning, Manitou Bistro.
Her restaurant is in the sleepy little town of Renfrew, population 8,000, just outside of Ottawa.
And this is where I decided to create my new adventure into my next business, which is this restaurant. And Renfrew was just the perfect spot. I wanted to be close to Ottawa, but not be in Ottawa. I tried a few different spots, and this was just the perfect location. I felt it the minute I walked in.
For Foco, it's an opportunity to represent the Indigenous community and to be seen and heard.
I feel like we've been in the shadows for so long, and we have a chance to really stand proud to be who we are.
The grand opening was June 21st, and to her surprise, it's been busy ever since. Ian Juby is from the Toronto area. He came to Renfrew to visit his grandma. One expression describes the taste.
This is going to be like the go-to place when we're here now. I think. That's just my vote, though.
By the time Juby makes his way back, he could see some changes.
I would love to increase my menu and bring in more original Indigenous-based foods with events. So my events I'm trying to create is folklore storytelling with, singing, native singing, a little bit of a history on how we are, and just with a nice 4-course meal.
Foco hopes to see more restaurants like this open up in the region. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Renfrew, Ontario.
Certainly looks like a great spot there. Well, just over a decade ago, the state of Vermont recognized 4 Abenaki tribes. However, the Odanak Abenaki in Quebec say they have no kinship ties to these Vermont tribes, putting their legitimacy into question. Recently, scholar Daryl LaRue published a report saying these Vermont Abenaki are actually the descendants of French Canadians. Professor LaRue joined our Dennis Ward earlier.
Daryl, thanks for being with us. A little, I guess, for starters, on how did you determine that these Vermont tribes were actually made up of non-First Nations people?
What I did is I did their genealogies, and so there's a program in Quebec. It's called the Research Program for Historical Demography. It runs out of the University of Montreal. It has existed now for over 50 years, since the late 60s. And essentially it reconstructs the genealogy of French descendants. And when I say French descendants, I mean individuals who count among their primary ancestors the first settlers in New France. I'm one of them, all sort of French Canadians in Canada would be one of those French descendants. And so I use this program, which has actually digitized about 2 million records between 1620 and 1850. And so that was a fairly straightforward thing to do. They named their ancestors from the middle of the 1800s. I found them in this database because they're mostly French Canadian. About 90% of their ancestors are French Canadian. Sometimes they're Germans. Sometimes they're, in a couple cases, there's two German or / Dutch families that come from the sort of Hudson Valley, so further towards New York. But for almost all of them, their ancestors are Quebecois immigrants to Vermont in the middle of the 1800s. And so I did this complete genealogy of all these families and discovered that according to their 2005 records that they submitted as part of this federal acknowledgement process, 98% of their members have no Abenaki ancestry whatsoever. There are, I think it's 16 members in 2005 who they used for the first time in any of their membership records who do have some Abenaki ancestry and are actually tied to the community at Odanak, which is sort of the center of Abenaki life today. And that's in sort of southern Quebec, not too far from Montreal, but an hour and a half north east of Montreal.
So Daryl, why should we and the Odanak Abenaki care if they have tribal recognition in Vermont?
What is happening is the state of Vermont, when, for instance, there are different forms of construction projects and there are human remains that are found. And so, sometimes archaeologists will be called to, test sort of carbon date those remains or the grounds around them. And if they're determined to be the remains of people who are indigenous to that territory, those groups get to inter those remains. They're not returned to the actual Abenaki people. And part of the reason that is, and this is one of the things that people at Odanak have expressed a lot of concern about, is that their ancestors, their people, are being returned to fake Abenakis, right, who then can do whatever they want with them. They can rebury them according to whatever, pretend ceremonies that they've invented. We're not exactly sure what it is that they do with them, but the state is not recognizing the fact that these groups should not have access to the remains of actual Abenaki people and are sort of giving them those remains. And so the people of Odanak, the earliest that I've seen that they brought this to the attention of the state of Vermont is a letter from the chief in 2003 his name was Gilles Obamsawin. And he wrote a letter to the state in 2003 saying that these people are not us. They're not Odanak. They're not Abenaki. They've never demonstrated to us how they came to those claims, and it's just wrong that you're returning the remains of our ancestors to them. There are other sort of benefits that these groups, I guess, are entitlements that they get. There's as of, I think it was 2020, they have access now to hunting and fishing in the territory. They don't have to pay for a particular license like other people in Vermont.
Now, Daryl, you've often called this appropriation of Indigenous identity race shifting. What are some ways that Indigenous people can put a stop to it?
One of the things that Odanak has done is they've created a committee whose role it is to do this work, to essentially fight back against false claims to being Abenaki, because they don't just happen in Vermont and New Hampshire, they also happen in Quebec. There are a number of different groups that work with the groups in Vermont and New Hampshire who call themselves Abenaki but aren't at all. And so it's kind of an ongoing work just to kind of to survey the landscape, if you will, of the organizations who are doing this type of harm, and then to come up with a strategy. And I think the people of Odanak and Wolanak, through their tribal council, have been really good at bringing together ideas and sort of strategies. And so they respond to the types of claims that are being made in a very proactive way. And so it's been sort of really a good learning experience for me, at least. I've been to Odanak a couple times to speak about my research findings since 2018. To learn from them about the struggles that they've undertaken and really the harms that this movement in New England and also in Quebec is bringing to them as Abenaki people.
Daryl, we'll have to leave it there, but appreciate you taking some time for us. Good to see you.
Thank you so much.
All right, we have to take one final break here on the program. Our photo of the day and weather are still to come. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Dave Menzies of Steinbach, Manitoba was able to capture this stunning image of an eagle making his way down to enjoy a fresh catch. That's an absolutely amazing photo there, Dave. Thanks so much for that one. If you have a picture you would like to share, you'd be sure to send your photos to share@aptn.ca. All right, now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Beginning on the East Coast, rain and 16 in St. John's and 25 in Halifax. 18 degrees and rain in Cartwright and 22 in Happy Valley Goose Bay. 17 in showers in Quebec City and 24 in Montreal. 25 in Toronto and 23 in North Bay. 25 in Wawa and 25 in Sioux Lookout. 13 degrees in Churchill and 18 in The Paw. 20 degrees in Barons River and 23 in Winnipeg. 23 in Regina and 22 in North Battleford. 19 and clear in Buffalo Narrows and clear and 21 in Stony Rapids. As we continue west, clear and 21 in Fort Chippewa and 19 in Peace River. 19 in Edmonton and 29 in Lethbridge. 22 degrees in Campbell River and 18 in Bella Coola. 19 degrees in Sandspit and 19 in Dease Lake. 18 in Beaver Creek and 27 in Old Crow. 26 in Norman Wells and 24 in Fort Simpson. 25 in Fort McPherson and 25 in Inuvik. Clear 19 in Cambridge Bay and 14 in Arviat. 10 degrees in Iqaluit and 9 degrees in Iqaluit. Well, the International Indigenous Hip Hop Awards are just days away. This is the third annual event, and for the first time, they will be held in Vancouver instead of Winnipeg. And for more on the awards, Nikki Erminskin, the event coordinator, joined our Dennis Ward.
Nikki, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Tansei.
For those who are unfamiliar with the International Indigenous Hip Hop Awards, can you tell us a little bit about them?
Yeah, the International Indigenous Hip Hop Awards is going into its third year. The first year was a virtual, second year was in Winnipeg, and the third year is here in Vancouver, which we're all really excited about. We had an amazing collaboration with Civic Theaters in Vancouver and the City of Vancouver, who really pulled through and helped us to get this amazing venue. We have over 26 artists performing over 2 days. We have a trade show featuring many vendors and artists. And we're also going to have an amazing red carpet. So it's going to be quite exciting.
It certainly sounds exciting. Like you mentioned, the first one was virtual and then in Winnipeg, moving to Vancouver this year. Any other new elements to look forward to on this third year?
Oh yeah, this year we actually introduced the first line of Indigenous hip hop trading cards. So all of the OGs from all of the people who started the Indigenous hip hop movement are going to be held up in a good way, including new people who are coming in, new artists. So we thought that was really cool, a cool way to like mark the milestone of us going to the third year and just like holding hip hop up. Plus, we're going to be doing a really amazing red carpet. We actually have All My Relations and Supernatural Modeling going to be doing a red carpet fashion show with designer Corey Bulpett. So we're super looking forward to that. We're actually going to have a whole car like drive up. It's going to be an amazing night, and we're all so excited.
Yeah, that sounds pretty awesome. Really like the idea of the cards too. It's also the 50th anniversary of hip hop. Anything special planned to mark that occasion?
Oh, well, our new run of shirts this year are going to have the 50th anniversary logo on it. And I think that's another reason why we put out the trading cards, was to mark the 50th anniversary of hip hop. And yeah, that's going to be the theme. So it's your favorite era of the last 50 years of hip hop is going to be the theme for the awards show. So yeah, we're really looking forward to it.
Well, the merch for this thing sounds incredible. I saw there was also special beaded medallions that you can get as well. I'd like to get our hands on some of those things. What do you think an award show like this does for the international Indigenous hip hop scene?
Oh, that's a very loaded question. I think it not only creates space, it kind of takes that space, and we hold that space together so that we can share our messages and our medicine with the world. I think Indigenous people have been underrepresented for a long time in the industry, and especially in the music industry. And I think now is our time. There's so much talent, and I think it goes even beyond the music community. I think the biggest part for this, and the reason that I do this work, is to work with the youth and get the youth involved and show youth that, people who come from the same place you came from are doing and following their dreams, and it can happen, to not have those boundaries. And yeah, just hold each other up. It's not so much about the awards, it's about, holding each other up and celebrating each other's victories, and I think that's really important, and that's a great way to bring our community together, but also the outside community and hip hop lovers and music lovers, so hip hop has always been that string that brings people together, and that music and that genre that really is powerful and brings healing to so many people, including myself.
Awesome stuff, Nikki. Wish you all the best with the couple of days there, and won't be able to make it myself, but look forward to watching the live stream when it's out.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Hi.
Well, if you're in the area, it certainly sounds like an event worth going to out in Vancouver. All right, that's going to do it for this Monday edition of APTN National News. If you joined our show late or missed any of our stories from tonight, you can check out our website, aptnnews.ca. For all of us here, thank you so much for joining us. Miigwech, Kinanask, and have a great night.